Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of the 3 More Points podcast. In this episode today, we're going to go through the things that you might have missed, or maybe I missed, in my post-match review, where I was absolutely steaming post-live stream. Chelsea beat Newcastle 2-1, and of course, we are joined by none other than the brilliant, a guy called Henry, boxing's #1 channel right now. Harry, welcome back. I'm going to keep going between Harry and Henry because I just like doing that. But how the devil are you, Sunshine?
You can call me Harry, George. I think that's good. But yes, a guy called Henry is the channel, guys. Do subscribe if you like boxing. And it will be the #1 channel. I'm trying to do that. What's that manifest? That manifest thing. That's what I'm trying to do, George. So that's what we're
you're
aiming
manifesting the positives. You're bringing yourself to the very top of the game. I rate it.
That's it. I'm all right. I had a haircut, but you didn't say anything, so that felt a bit bad. But other than that, I'm fine.
I couldn't tell, to be honest. You actually do look very smart today. You do look very smart.
I've been
There's
ill.
a lot of other things that look smart. You've been ill. Me too.
Yeah,
that makes two of us.
Well, you're always ill now, as we all know. But I've been ill, and I'm on the comeback trail. So yeah, mate. But no, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm still excited about that game at the weekend. I think it was one of those that we learned a lot about Chelsea and the different ways in which we can win. I don't understand how so many people didn't realise in the comments of both the live stream and the 6 Things We Learnt video that I was absolutely smashed. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to promote like drinking excess amounts, but the amount of people that just like didn't say anything, I was very happy with it because I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get my words out properly. But I've watched the game back again. I've looked at some other little things that maybe I would have missed at the time. And I think I know where I want to start today. And I want to start with something negative, but it isn't necessarily that negative because it's not come out of nowhere. I want to talk, Harry, about Robert Sanchez.
We're going straight into the big Sanch.
I think we're going straight into the big Sanch, mate. I think I'm finished with this guy. I think as much as I wanted to give him time, I wanted to... The passing statistics, you sent me this after the match. It's shocking. Like, the reason Sanchez is the #1... I'll put it up on the screen for people now. We're talking about less than 50% pass completions. We're talking about long balls attempted and literally like, I think, 25% completion. This is not good enough. This is not numbers that fill me with confidence about a ball-playing goalkeeper. Enzo Maresca, as much as I really agree with a lot of the things this guy does, a lot of the things this guy says, I think he's a brilliant manager. I think we're blessed at Chelsea Football Club to have him. The whole dying on the sword about, well, I told Sanchez to do it, and if he stops doing it, then he doesn't play thing. Like, I'm seeing through that. I'm seeing beyond that. And I think Philip Jorgensen now has to be given a start in the Premier League. I think he'll start tomorrow in the Carabao Cup. If it's not saving shots that are against him and making fatal errors, it's giving the ball away. And I think if that's the way we're going to play, I don't see this ball-playing goalkeeper that Maresca sees. And please tell me that you agree, because if you disagree, then we're going to have a big scrap here.
How old is Sanchez now?
He's 26 years old, 197 centimetres. He's a bloody big boy.
He's massive.
Our Robert.
Yeah.
He is massive.
It's an interesting one because he is one of the older players in the team. And he is kind of getting to that age where you'd expect him to start becoming what he is. So it's not like... Because I think about it and I go, well, we have other players in the side who have been patchy, who have shown like talent and raw ability, but inconsistency, which is what I see with him. I think technically, as a goalkeeper, he's got everything you want. He just never puts it all together at once, 90 minutes week on week. But he clearly can pass because he plays some really good passes. He clearly can stop shots because he's saved us points already this season with his shot stopping. But me and my dad were chatting. My dad's a massive Chelsea fan, for anyone who doesn't know. But we were chatting about it yesterday, and we were just both saying that his biggest problem is just that his mindset is just all wrong, clearly. Because what's the difference between him...
something really funny?
What?
I'm on SofaScore right now, right? And it's got, like, they have player profiles on SofaScore. Strengths, no outstanding strengths. Weaknesses, error proneness. Like, is that a Chelsea standard keeper, Harry? Is that a goalie that you want at Chelsea Football Club? No, outstanding strengths and error prone?
No, absolutely not. But I just want to give him some credit before I maul him because like he has got ability. Like he clearly can, like there's been moments where like I don't remember what game it was now, but he played that long ball, Palmer heads it down. I think Jackson goes through and scores. There was moments in the game where he played passes that worked, but he's just so inconsistent and so nonchalant looking at times. So for me, I can see why that he's been persisted with, because clearly there is ability and talent there, but I just think mindset-wise, he's just so far off. So I think that's the biggest problem with him, is just that he's not consistent. And will he ever become consistent? Well, I don't really want to suffer through to find out, because it's so frustrating when all these really difficult parts of the team are starting to click and come together, and something as fundamental as a goalkeeper is what is undermining it. That's a massive issue. You just really can't have that. So I agree with you. I think that first opportunity, it's time to sort of move on from him, really, and it was what we said originally, George, he's had a good performance. This was like 4 games back. He's had a good performance. Now let's see if he can be consistent and stick with it. And if he can do this for 6 months, then you give him a chance to be the number 1 keeper moving forward. But I just don't think he's good enough, unfortunately.
I think if we look at here, I'm going to put this up on the screen again for you guys. This is the last 5 performances. And you can see here, the average is 7.29. 8.9 against West Ham, 5.8 against Brighton, 8.5 against Forest, then 6.9 against Liverpool, and a 6.4 against Newcastle. If you're going to be putting in 50% good performances and 50% bad performances, that's why Chelsea have literally got 11 goalkeepers. We just signed another youngster up on his first professional contract. He's a goalie as well. I'm not saying that he should be playing. I can't even remember the guy's name now, but he's like 16 or whatever. He shouldn't be playing ahead of Sanchez. No. But we have literally been signing goalkeepers like they're going out of fashion. We've been buying goalkeepers as if they're flipping collectible Pokemon cards. Like, we have got so many keepers, but the one that we persist with in the most important competition that we're featuring in is inconsistent. At this point in time, right, Philip Jorgensen's not really done that much. The opposition that he plays against is weaker than the ones that Sanchez plays against, but it's about showing consistency, being at a high level week in, week out. And I also want to talk a little bit when it comes to getting these negatives out the way, because there's a lot of positive things to discuss here in this pod today.
Well, should we do a positive? Should we sandwich it, as they call it, and then we can come back to the next.
We could sandwich it, but I think the weakness at the minute is specifically on 2 players, and Sanchez is one of them. But Wesley Fofana, I think, is also a problem right now.
Do you think
for Chelsea. So? When I look at this team and I look at the way that we can attack, I like the way that we score so many early goals in second halves, which means we're responsive to stimulus from the manager at half time. I think there's so many good things. What are you laughing at, Harry?
That's such like a scientific way of putting it. We're responsive to the stimuli.
I thought you were going to make a crude joke about something.
No,
but maybe that's just the way my
that.
brain's working today.
I don't do that.
But I think Fofana is also questionable. We spent a lot of money on him, £70 million plus. That is similar money to what Liverpool spent on Virgil van Dijk, if not more. And I think when you look at this Chelsea team right now, Fofana's already had a suspension, got another yellow card the other day. I look at him and I think still maybe he tries to do a bit too much. I think Colwill has been fantastic. And I look at that team and I'm like, if one of the centre-backs and the goalkeeper is a weakness, no wonder we've won 5, drawn 2, lost 2. We're going to throw goals away. We're going to throw chances away because we're not a finished product. Not saying we should be, but that for me is the 2 weak slots in this side right now.
Yeah, but what you just said, not being a finished product, are you not actually quite impressed with the way he's come back, given the context of the injury and everything else?
I mean, I think yes. I think in hindsight, I'm looking more like beyond the next few matches. I'm looking towards the end of this season and foreshadowing if we're not quite there, what do I think it will be because of? I don't think it will be because of a lack of quality in the fullback position. I don't think it will be because we've not got good enough midfielders. And I don't think it's because we've not got good enough attackers. I think at the minute, Sanchez is the weakness that I want to see removed immediately. And Fofana is... I want Sanchez out of the team now. I've seen enough.
So when you say immediately,
I saw,
but do you mean like first opportunity to buy someone better, or do you actually want Jorgensen to play instead?
I want Jorgensen to play instead.
Really?
And I think the jury is still out as to whether or not he's going to be good enough to be like a top keeper. I think this is the thing with Chelsea now. It's like we can run, but we've got like a half parachute on our back right now, which is just stopping us from like going full out and just dominating every single match, winning game after game and competing for the league. I think the reason Chelsea won't compete for the league is because of the goalkeeping position and still a lack of stability at the back. Yes, we're trying to play from the back. It's a new system, takes time, teething. Yes, but I don't know if I'm convinced moving forward with Sanchez in goal if we can get any better than where we're at right now, to be quite honest. So I'm putting Jorgensen in there.
Fair enough. And then with Fofana, it's an interesting one because obviously had that massive injury, was a massive talent when we bought him, physically so gifted. And I know we had some dodgy moments in that game, but I still felt that because of the recovery pace he has and whatnot, I still think he's probably the best person to partner Levi Colwill. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that we need to... Do you want to give him time? Do you want to go and buy someone? What's your immediate reaction to him in that position?
My immediate reaction for right now is that he should stay in the team. I think he's better than Tosin. I think he's better than Disasi. I think he's better than Badiashile. I don't think Fofana's a bad defender, but I do worry if he's going to be enough as the season wears on to where I think we can go. And I think it's been quite a negative start to this video, and I guess that was mostly through my choice to add Fofana into this like skepticism debate regarding the goalkeeper. But let's talk now about the Reece James situation, because I think that in itself, as much as we've still looked quite weak defensively, Reece has just come back into the fold. He's the Chelsea captain. He put in a really great performance at the weekend, but he was playing at left back, Harry.
Fascinating. Don't you?
Absolutely fascinating.
Like, you know, it's so funny. He comes back and we've all been saying how cautious we need to be with James. You know, maybe play him in the right, like play him as a centre back in the right of a three, like just give him an easy reintroduction. Instead, he's come back in to two of the toughest games of the season. One of them he's played out of position. What's your reaction to that? Because it's a baptism of fire in terms of being reintegrated, really, isn't it?
My big debate I had in my head was, well, Reece is going to play right back, isn't he? And then after seeing Cucurella play 90 minutes in the Conference League, do I think Gusto should start ahead of Cucurella? No. Do I think Marc Cucurella doesn't play in this team and Reece James plays at left back ahead of him? I did not see this one coming. But again, for whatever reason, I think it absolutely worked. And I think it's got something to do with the way that Maresca is wanting one of these fullbacks to invert. I think when you look at the ability that all three of those fullbacks have, Gusto, James, Cucurella, I think the way that Maresca sees the way that Gusto can be on the ball means that Malo Gusto is probably his first choice on the field, whether that is at the left or the right, in any given game right now. I think the way that Maresca talks about Gusto, he obviously rates him very highly. And when it comes to like moving into that half space to step up into that midfield, I think Gusto is good at it. But then if you're going to get the fullback to invert and then he ends up playing kind of like as an advanced 8 further up the field, have you seen Malo Gusto's shooting ability?
Not great.
Like, we need to stick some, you know, when you're in school and they used to put the ping pong ball in the toilet to make sure you're aiming correctly. Someone needs to show Malo Gusto, like, this is where you're supposed to shoot. Do you not have that in your school? You used to have a little ping pong ball in the toilet so that you didn't pee on the seat. Gusto needs some shooting practice, basically, is what I'm saying. But Reece at left back just did work, didn't it?
Did it work? I don't know. It's not straightforward, is it? I think, does it get the best out of Reece James playing him as a left back? No. Did he do well? No. I thought he did well. But I thought he did well. I liked he was playing some really nice little balls over the top. He was switching the play quite nicely. And he had some big defensive moments from that position. So it says a lot about his ability level that second game back he's come in and done that. What did he play? Did he come off? I can't remember. But he played close to 90 minutes, didn't he?
Reece played 90 minutes.
Unbelievable. 90 minutes as a left back. But I'm still sort of getting to grips with the tactical makeup of things. And I feel like I'm still trying to understand, like, do you have any insight for me on the reason that Maresca did this? Played Reece as a left back? Because why can't you... I mean, I know the game before we did it the other way around. We had Gusto as the left-sided player and James as the right-sided player. And when you've got Cucurella sat right there, who's done that role so well, it does feel a bit confusing. I'm still not exactly sure why he did it. I wish I could give the listeners some valuable insight on this. And I almost wonder if it's to do with Neto being ahead of him on the left there. I'm not sure.
I think it was basically to allow... I think what the instruction to James would have been Neto is able to track back. Neto's a really good... He's got good defensive work rate. He does drop deeper to win the balls back and receive it and run with it, as we saw with the goal. That burst of pace brilliantly beats his man. We'll talk about Neto more in a minute. But I think for James, it was a case of if you're going to play 90 minutes, which obviously that's the goal, he's the captain, we know how good he is, he wants him out there as long as he possibly can. If you've got Neto in front of you on that left-hand side, who does all of that defensive stuff really well, you also look at that Newcastle team, and it's not like you've got a load of pace to come at you. You know, you've got Sandro Tonali, Livramento's good, but like he's also not going to want to bomb forward because he knows that he's going to get caught by Neto's
gets pinned.
speed.
Yeah, we pin the fullbacks. Yeah, exactly.
And then on that left-hand side, you've got Harvey Barnes, who is a dangerous player, but Isak also likes to drop over onto that left-hand side as well. So that would have given Reece more time, I think, running backwards, which isn't obviously ideal for the way that he wants to play right now, having just come back from injury. But I also think Gusto, if you look at the average positions here of both Malo Gusto and Reece James, Malo Gusto is all over the place in a good way. Like Malo Gusto's getting forward, he's stepping up into like that right centre midfield position in that half space. And then if you look at James, it is very much more centric to staying out wide, not stepping in as much. And I think it's mainly just a physical thing right now to protect James. But then also my confusion is predominantly like what I think Cucurella has been one of the best players this season. I said it before the end of the last international break. I was like, well, yeah, so far when I look at the performances, I think Marc Cucurella has been up there as one of the best.
Yeah, me too.
To me, I think it just shows the faith, first of all, that Maresca's got in Gusto, that it doesn't matter what side he's playing, he's going to play. And I think tactically, as much as it is still very much early stages, and we're still learning about like who is going to be that inverted player week in, week out. And because the positions are changing every week, I think it's still a bit of trialing, bit of erroring, potentially, from Maresca.
Yeah, I also think you've just said it's the faith he shows in Gusto, but I actually think, more than anything, it's the faith that he's showing in James, because he's gone here. To me, what I'm seeing here is that role you're just talking about with Gusto, to me, it's so obvious that that's where James should play. That has got to be James's role. He is such a good footballer. He can have so much influence in the final third of the pitch. So eventually he's got to be there. But right now he's not ready to play that role. But you've got to get him on the pitch and get him minutes. To the extent that I think Maresca's gone, we're going to play James as the more reserved defender in this game to get him minutes, to get him fit, to get him match sharp. And he's even sacrificed Cucurella for that. And I think that normally what you would see is Cucurella as the left-sided player and James as the right-sided player. But for whatever reason in this game, he wanted the inverting, advanced fullback to be on the right-hand side. And I think that's why he's done it the way he has. I think that's what it is. It's a fitness thing. It's a getting James up to speed thing.
I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And I think it worked, you know, especially the way that James saved us at the end of the game with the defensive blocks and stuff and clearances off the line. Like, that is what you want him there for. And I think to bring it back to what I was saying about Fofana, Cole will also sometimes lapse of concentration, not positionally perfect, and then he does something erratic, and then we give a penalty away. Liverpool, case in point.
Sorry, but isn't that such good developmental management that Maresca's gone, all right, this is actually a suboptimal lineup potentially for this game because James isn't quite ready, but the big picture here is the faster I get this guy fit, the better we are. I think that's so forward-thinking.
He played 90 minutes and looked super fit.
Ready, but is he ready to play the role that we really want to see him in, which is the one where he's getting forward more? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, so the weirdest one is the fact that it was, of all of the positions in the back line, that was the last position I would have expected to see Reece James in, is what I think is like the be-all and end-all point of this. But I think he did exceptionally well, to be honest.
I know. I think the way he's come back has been great.
It's made like the whole idea of wondering what our best team is, what is the best setup. It's made that conversation even more difficult to find definitive answers to because,
I know.
I mean, we didn't look bad defensively against Newcastle. I think we controlled the game really well. If you look at the momentum chart, which I absolutely love this because it gives you kind of like an overview of the ebb and flow of the match. When I was watching it, it felt like this. Sometimes you look at the momentum charts and you're like, it didn't feel that way. But from the moment Chelsea scored, there was a good period after that goal where we're kind of riding that wave of the stadium probably. I think Newcastle were a bit shell-shocked. They went in at half-time thinking, we can actually go out there and get something from this game. They ended the first half strong. And then Newcastle kind of came back into things a little bit. But I think Chelsea showed a lot of character in this game. To be able to come through that, get the 3 points, not really create too much. We didn't give Nick Pope much to say in that second half. But I think we should talk a little bit about Jackson. Because once again, Nicolas Jackson is showing exactly why. Right now, this is a great stat. Nicolas Jackson, since he started his first Premier League game for Chelsea, there's only 2 players that have scored more goals than him. Do you know who they are?
Is it, for Chelsea or in general?
No, just in the whole of the Premier League. The whole of the Premier League.
Is it Erling Haaland and Cole Palmer?
It's Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins. Obviously, Cole Palmer scored more than him too, but he's not a striker.
Oh,
That,
striker. Sorry.
For a striker who's young, coming in from a different league, is absolutely astounding. Like, Ollie Watkins is a really good forward, playing in an amazingly well-organised and oiled system under Unai Emery, and Erling Haaland is a machine. For Nicolas Jackson to be the 3rd best, if you think about what a striker does, yeah? For me, I'm old school. I want my striker to just score me goals. That is the predominant tick box. If you do that, excellent.
Give George Jermaine Defoe any day of the week, except for the fact he played for Spurs.
Give me Marcus Bent. Give me Marcus Bent. Give me Andy Cole. Give me anybody who scores you goals. Alan Shearer. I'll take any of them. But Nicolas Jackson is a goal scorer. But what I love about Jackson the most, and I think why he is so underrated and underappreciated right now in the Premier League, is because he is actually a complete forward. Apart from the fact that if you put the ball on his head, I'm a bit worried that it might go behind him and it could score an own goal from inside the opposition's box. But like, in terms of the all-round play, like that first half, the dropping deep, the little turns, the flicks. Like, people are saying if Cole Palmer can start adding that little turn and flick more often, then he is Eden Hazard. Like, Nicolas Jackson does that sublimely. Nicolas Jackson's all-round performance was so good, Harry.
Yeah, literally in 3 moves, we can be in for a goal. You saw that with the disallowed goal in the first half. And there's shades of Bobby Firmino in there, the way he used to play, where he'd drop in deep, let the wingers come into play or the 10 come into play and play them through. Maybe not be scoring so many goals, but honestly, it looks like he can do a bit of everything to me. And I think the fact that he did start life not as a centre-forward is clearly paying dividends here. You know, there's always those kind of old school guys in the media that are always like, oh, you know, it's natural. If you're a natural finisher, you're a finisher, and that's it. You can't really add it into your game. But right now, to me, Jackson is adding it into his game. He's looking more and more clinical. I know he had that goal scoring run just before we signed him. So a lot of it, I think, for him has just been getting used to the physicality of the league and what is required from him in these systems. But I think Maresca's systems obviously helped massively as well. But then he also kicked on under Pochettino towards the end of last season. He was a lot more consistent. But I'm just so impressed, like you say, with his all-round game. The dribbling has been there from day one. I've always been impressed with him as a ball carrier. But like you say, the composure when the ball goes long to him now, the way he chests it down, flicks it off, the relationship he's developing with Cole Palmer is really, really good. And I feel like Palmer is actually elevating the level of everyone around him. He's giving them the confidence to try things because he'll probably feed off you. And it was like, you remember when we had Hazard? He used to have to do everything himself because he was so much better than everybody else. But imagine having those guys that are on the same level as you. I mean, when we had Costa, obviously, in Hazard, that was a different story. But there was definitely a period where he was the only guy that was really at that level. But you can see it with these guys. Palmer's raising the level of everyone around him. Everybody's trying different things, little flicks, little flare moves, trying the audacious. And the pass from Palmer in the second half just kind of epitomised that. Put Neto through. Jackson makes that great finish. And his finishing is looking better and better. I swear to you, the last 2 goals he scored, he would have missed them when we first signed him, for sure.
It's the fact that in this game against Newcastle, what I really liked about Jackson's performance is that he was kind of a side man. Like, he didn't get on the ball very often. He touched the ball 21 times here, which again, if you're talking about the striker being the guy to just finish everything off, but you know that isn't the way that Jackson wants to play. He wants to be on the ball. He wants to drop into the channels. He wants to drop deeper to receive it. I think he's kind of showing, like, there's elements almost of like Harry Kane. Just if you think about the movement of what he does, like, I'm not saying...
Sorry, mate, I'm dying.
Harry might be sick, but I think that comment about Harry Kane has sent him over the edge there. But I think the way that he does the key passes, 3 key passes, if you're touching the ball 21 times, you score a goal and get 3 key passes, it shows that right now...
Amazing.
That traditional striker role isn't what he's doing, but what Chelsea are doing so well. And I think this leads us perfectly into... the Pedro Neto decision. Enzo Maresca decided to go with Neto over Jadon Sancho, which I actually thought in the build-up to the game was the correct choice anyway. I think it was smart, and I think it also vindicates why Reece James was at left-back to kind of protect him a little bit. But I think what it does if you look here, again, if I put Pedro Neto's stats up on the screen, 53 touches, more than double that of Nicolas Jackson. And of course, you think the winger's going to have more touches of the ball to try and get it to the striker. The assist, plain and simply, is the exact reason why Chelsea right now are so difficult to play against when it comes to defending. Oppositions know if it was Chelsea last season, and this is again a difference between Jackson's ability to finish his chances this year compared to last year. Last season, we're just trying to cross the ball into the box, which again, you're trying to put it on Jackson's head and he can't head the ball very well. Look at that goal that Jackson scores. Not only is the pass from Cole Palmer just beyond sublime, I think that's the best pass of the season. You won't see a better one. We'll talk about Cole in a minute. But it's Neto's awareness to know that that's coming. What you said about Palmer elevating everyone's game around him, that's what's making Chelsea a good team right now. You've got that standout player that's kind of like, he's almost like a god on the pitch at times, Cole Palmer. But it's Neto's awareness and knowledge of when to run, when to move. And then the pace is just blistering. That's what Chelsea spent the money on. He has got an absolute engine in him. But when it comes to that like quick speed, Neto amazing. Puts it on a plate for Jackson. He can't miss and he doesn't miss. Pedro Neto coming in, I thought was smart.
And does Neto make that run if Palmer isn't as good as he is as well? That talking about elevating everybody, probably not. So he knows that ball can get to him, but also the accuracy of his crossing. Sorry, mate, I'm dying. The accuracy of his crossing, it's something you don't see too often in the league. Like, how often do you watch teams just like cross the ball and just they say stick it in the mixer? He's not doing that. He's literally going, that's the man I want to put across it to, and he nails those crosses every time, left or right. He's absolutely brilliant. What a signing.
It's not necessarily because Sancho's been bad that Neto has come in. I absolutely am sure that the way Maresca's picking these teams right now, and it's working because we're winning more matches than we're losing, he's looking at the personnel of the opposition. He's looking at the characteristics and the positives of what Neto would bring, or sometimes if we're up against that low block, Sancho's going to be the better player because he can bring other players quickly into the game, little two touches on the edge of the box, all this stuff. But I think when you look forward to Manchester United this weekend, which we've got to talk about this week for the pod, because this is going to be one hell of a match now. United yesterday sacked Erik ten Hag. Absolutely the right decision there. The guy, I don't know how he managed to last this long, to be honest, but as a Chelsea fan, you're looking at this thinking, surely you'd have just given him one more game. Please. Can you? No? All right, don't worry about it. Now it looks like Ruben Amorim's going to take over. Who do you think? Sancho obviously can't play because he's still technically a Man United player. He's on loan with Chelsea. If you look forward beyond the Man United game as well to Arsenal, has Neto just made himself the left winger full time? Is it as simple as that now, do you think? If he's going to play against Man United, Noni Madueke just seems to have locked that right-hand side down so far. Like, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen as we move through this season in terms of the amount of minutes? Do you think someone will be disappointed if they're not getting many minutes between those wingers? Like, has Neto just nailed that spot down?
I don't think so. I think that it will. I've said this before. I think it depends on who we're playing against. I do believe still when we're playing low block sides that I think Sancho's such a good pick for those games because he is so intricate with his passing. He's so sharp in those like sort of tight half spaces, and I feel like Neto, he's much better suited to teams that are going to try and press us really hard up the pitch because there's so much space in behind that. That speed is just another. It's a game changer in those scenarios, and you do almost feel a bit sorry for Mudryk because he almost brings exactly the same thing. It's like we've just signed a further along version of Mudryk in Neto, really. That's kind of how I see it. He's more developed. It's going to be really hard for him to get games now because we've gone and got the guy that is a couple of years ahead of him in terms of that development. Talent-wise, I think, though, that he's shown a lot, but that's a separate point. But I don't think he has nailed that position down. I don't think he's even nailed down a starting position either. And like you say, I don't think Madueke's nailed that position, but what I would say about it is that I don't have... A lot of people have been criticising Madueke. I've seen a lot of comments that he's the guy that should be dropped. My perspective on Madueke is this. I think he's playing well still. I know he's not getting the returns exactly, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have one of your attackers that's a little bit more selfish, a little bit more minded that they're going to get a shot away. And he does carry the ball very, very well. I don't see him making too many mistakes. I thought he made good decisions in the game. I thought he made passes when he should have. I thought he shot when it was okay to do so. Every now and again, you get a moment where you go, "Oh, I probably should have passed that, Nonny." But I think people are just being hypercritical because we're being so productive in those forward positions now. But I genuinely don't mind having a winger who's a bit more greedy in Madueke, who is looking to shoot a bit more often. But at the same time, I'm sure there'll be moments when you go, yeah, let's go with Sancho and Neto. I don't think he's nailed that position. I don't think anybody's nailed except for Palmer and Jackson right now. For me, those are the two that they're developing that relationship. They're the two where the interplay is so good. They're both getting regular returns. So then it's just how do you fit those pieces in around them depending on what the opposition is doing. But one thing I do want to say while we're on the forwards and on those wing positions, I watched the City game, and it's such an interesting conversation to look at Maresca's influences from Pep and think about how we differ from them. Because Maresca, sure, he worked with Pep, but he is quite different. And something I just want to say, and to give him plaudits and to kind of credit the way we're playing, we're so much better to watch than City are. It's so much more entertaining. And, City's become a bit of a joke, like it's the winger graveyard now, because all you do is hug the touchline, hold possession, pass the ball back. You saw what he's done with Jack Grealish. Whereas Maresca's really getting the best out of our wingers. He's brought our wingers alive. He's encouraged them to go 1v1, to get shots away, to dribble and be creative, and to create those scenarios where you get isolated 1v1 with your opponent to make spaces for other players. What does come with that is a lesser control of the game. And that's where guys like Lavia coming in have made a big difference. We should probably talk about Lavia actually before we finish this one. I was actually surprised at how high he was pressing in the game, so we can come to that in a minute. But yeah, overall, I just want to compliment Maresca's footballing mantra. I was quite worried we were going to go for another sort of Maurizio Sarri sort of phase where it's that really painful, really methodical, slow build-up play. I've got to be honest with you, as impressive as City are, as much of a machine as they are, I've said this before, I don't really enjoy watching them play. The games are not that exciting. I love this version of football Maresca's got us playing, and whoever he decides to go with in those wing positions, I think can do a great job overall. I know it's such a cop-out answer, but I just think they're all great players.
But you mentioned Lavia there. I think if you look in here at both Lavia and Caicedo, I'll put the stats up on the screen again for you guys. Lavia, 95% passes completed. Wow. Caicedo, 94% passes completed.
Wow.
If your two midfielders are keeping the ball like that, that's the control element of a game, especially against an opposition like Newcastle that, they've got some good technical players, but more importantly, they've got physical players that want to bully you. They have got legs in that midfield. To have a midfield of Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, and flipping Sandro Tonali, and to be able to...
Great midfield.
Well, if you look at the actual numbers, like you're outnumbered there, but obviously we know that's not the way Chelsea play. We've got extra men in the middle there for protection. But to be able to control a game that way, Caicedo touching the ball 71 times, Lavia touching the ball 51 times. Like, I think Lavia, you spoke about him, you brought him up there. He came off for Enzo Fernandez with 18 minutes to go. And I think, again, comparing that to the momentum chart and the way that Newcastle was starting to impose themselves in the match, I think Enzo Fernandez came on for Lavia at that point, just as an opportunity, potentially, to see if Enzo could make those little balls over the top. Mudryk was also on the pitch at this time too. So I think Maresca saw the way that Chelsea could still hurt Newcastle. And by the end of the match, I think we could have had a penalty. It could have been another pen at the end. Could have been 3-1 then. Cole Palmer still on the pitch. He scores the penalty. Job done. 3-1, different scoreline. But I think Chelsea overall, there's still that midfield at times does get overran a little bit, but I think everybody just stepped up at the right times in this one. I think Caicedo, big defensive challenges at the end. Reece James with the big defensive blocks at the end. I think overall, everybody can be happy with the performance, but we've got to finish, I think, today to talk about Palmer, unless you've got anything else you want to add.
I just wanted to say the one thing that has surprised me about the way Lavia is playing is how high he's pressing, because I really thought and felt that he'd be that sort of player that would sit in the deeper positions and sort of dictate the game a bit more, not advance too far forward, but really, just like Caicedo, just like every player, really, it's all action. It's less about what your position is and more about who needs to be pressed and who's closest to do that. And I do think for their goal, I would need to watch it again, but I remember thinking that Lavia mistimed his press for that goal. And I remember thinking that if he hadn't been the guy pressing, if he'd been in a more disciplined position, that he'd have been there to interfere potentially with that. I think he tried to commit a foul, didn't he, as they were breaking, and couldn't quite get him down. So that was interesting to me. But I just think that overall, I'm very, very excited about that pairing. And we have to say in this one that Enzo is outright dropped because in this game he was outright dropped because there's no argument of who was tired after coming back from international duty or anything like that. So big statement from Maresca. He obviously knows Lavia quite well as well from his time at City. And I think we're starting to see what, if a cup final is tomorrow, I think we're starting to see what sort of lineup he might pick.
Yeah. I think everybody right now hasn't got any time, and I keep saying this in every video, but it's a great problem to have. People that have an average game, I don't even think it's about whether or not you put in like a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. Like, what's the difference between those two numbers, really? Like, what makes it a 7, not a 6, whatever. I think it is purely right now, Maresca has, like, experimented with a few things at the start of this season just to see the awareness and receptibility, if that's even a word, of the Chelsea players to this new, like, instruction-based stimuli. I'm going to say the word again. Today has been all about the stimulus, ladies and gentlemen. But I think at the minute, everybody just understands what they're being asked to do. And I think the most important thing, when you've got big-name players that you've spent a lot of money on that expect to be playing, like Enzo Fernandez goes from captain in the side to not being in the side, not because he's rubbish, but because the guy that comes in has solved what part of the problem was when Enzo was on the pitch. We're getting overran in the midfield. Bring in Romeo Lavia, a stronger player, a player that's happy to get the ball, receive it from Sanchez if he can actually find his man, turn, move, distribute again, and not give the ball away. So I think Lavia's put himself in the starting 11 for that reason.
And also, I'd love to know what Enzo's pass completion numbers have been, but that aside, I can think of a few times where I've seen Enzo give the ball away and it's led directly to chances. Lavia, those pass completion numbers from him and Caicedo are absolutely just outrageous. They're outrageous. I didn't know that was their pass completion numbers. That's absolutely amazing, especially in a game like that where Newcastle are pressing so high up the pitch. Phenomenal stuff, really.
No, it is. And I think it is absolutely cherry on topped by Cole Palmer.
Yes, the jewel of the crown.
The jewel in the crown is Cole Palmer. Week after week, like, apart from the Ballon d'Or list, who, let's be honest, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this list, but to say that Hakan Çalhanoğlu's had a better year than Cole Palmer is downright disgraceful. He is not the 25th best player in the world. So the Ballon d'Or list means nothing, because reality is, right now, Cole Palmer is just on a different level to anybody. Genuinely, to anybody out there in the world right now, this guy is the best player in the world. The pass for the first goal is sublime. The run is like, it must have been less than a centimetre offside for the first goal. Beautiful finish into the bottom corner. And even people say, oh, Nick Pope should do better at his near post, getting down. Like, I don't know how hard Cole Palmer's shots are, but like, when he's got the ball in those positions, like now what we're seeing Palmer do is control and dictate the game and make things happen from everywhere. The pass, he's halfway within his own half, and within, like you say, 3 seconds, Chelsea have basically got ourselves a goal. 3 people touched the ball, we've scored because of just the unreal nature of the ball and what it was. And then to score straight after half-time, he did it at West Ham as well. And I think the intelligence is not always necessarily about, like, positional intelligence or the weight of the touch when you're on the ball. Like, where do you put it? Like, do you put it round the defender? Where do you go? I think it is more about the way that Palmer is actually able to dictate the ebb and flow of a match right now. When teams just come out for the start of a second half, they might be trying to ease themselves back into the game, trying to look at the whole team and be like, well, is there a tactical tweak here? Are Chelsea going to be a bit different? Whereas Palmer is like, no, I'm sorry, mate, but the game is played at my pace. It's being done the way that I want it to be done. And lo and behold, he goes and scores that goal. And I think the key point, from this podcast today, having spent the first sort of 10 minutes or so talking about the negatives, for me, I wanted to talk about some negatives a bit more, because I think what the positives are so cemented right now into progress and into being a really great side. And I think it's because Cole Palmer's levels are elevating everybody around him right now because of that ability to make something come out of nothing, which can therefore utilise the quality of the teammates. Like when he got those assists for Madueke, he got the ball to Noni in the correct positions that Noni thrives in. The pass to Neto is playing on the knowledge that Pedro Neto has got speed to burn, and Jackson's got the awareness that if Neto wins that ball, all he's got to do is tap it in. It's genius. It's absolutely genius, and it all stems from that one man, Jermaine Palmer.
I've heard a few people comparing him to Bergkamp. It's obviously very premature to be doing that, but it's, you know what it is? I just feel like we're going to start seeing more and more and more special moments from him in games, like we used to have with Hazard. And when you know, there's all this chat. You know, do you remember that trending thing that was going around for a while, the Barclaysman thing, like classic Barclays Premier League icons and players. Palmer reminds me of players from that era that are just such good footballers. And I know that I'm not one of these guys that thinks footballers are all crap now and that they're all athletes now and all that stuff. I don't think that's true. I just think there's a more athletic component to the game than there probably once was. But Palmer is such a exciting guy to have in your team, and I'm so happy he's at Chelsea. And I feel like the Premier League should be grateful he's at Chelsea as well, because I don't think you'd have seen this kind of player at City. I really, really don't. I think that system that Pep has is so much of a well-oiled machine. It stifles creativity. It stifles the freedom to express yourself. And, you know, you've seen Foden play incredibly for them, but give him more creative freedom. Grealish as well. Like, Grealish at Villa was... I don't think people can remember... I think a lot of people have forgotten how good Villa Grealish was. He was absolutely unbelievable player in terms of goals and assists. And now he doesn't get any returns because he's just constantly playing this dull wing role, is what we were talking about before. But in any era, I think Palmer is an exciting footballer to watch. But for me, like you were mentioning before, right now it's those touches, and he's evolved the way that we can play. For example, in this game, I saw, I think it was Micah Richards was doing a tactical breakdown after the game, and he was showing how Newcastle were going man for man. They were pressing us really high. This was off a goal kick, and it was explaining why the keeper is so important to the way we play. And it was showing all he's got to do is ping the ball over the top. Palmer can take one touch, control it, create the space, and then play it off, and then we go. Or if it's Jackson or whoever it is. The fact that Palmer's touch is so good in those pressurized situations, it creates instant goal scoring opportunities if a team does decide to go man for man against us. Likewise, if they drop off and sit deeper, he will find a way to find the right pass to thread it through to break you down. He just opens up all possibilities in terms of how we beat our opposition, basically. And I just love the way he carries himself as well. He's no bullshit. Like, you know, after the game, this interviewer asked him, you know, are you in the flow state right now? Are you unstoppable? And he just goes, I don't know if I'd say that. He's like, yeah, I'm enjoying my football. I want the team to play well. And he's just like, he's just so realistic, so matter of fact. And I think that's part of the reason he's so great. And I'm so happy he's a Chelsea player.
I know. I think what you said about Bergkamp is a big one. Like, the quote from Dennis Bergkamp is, behind every pass is a thought. And that is absolutely what Palmer is so great at, because I don't see, and I'm watching, I can see everything from bird's eye because we're watching on the television. I can't even see some of the things that he does. And then I'm like, when George just drops to the floor, I'm like, how on earth have you not only executed that, but like, where's the thought even come from? And I think that's the beauty of what Palmer does, is that sometimes you can't even look at something and understand it. You've just got to let your jaw grow to the floor. And that is what the brilliance and the beauty is, to just be blown away by either a shot, the numbers, a hat-trick, 4 goals in a game, or simply in this case, like, people remember stats in football too often. It's either you get the assists or you score the goals. People don't really know about the assist to the assist, which I think actually came from the US, which is which in this case, like, the pass of the season was the assist to the assist. And Palmer is just doing it now. And when he doesn't do it, you notice. Like, when he was a bit quiet against Liverpool, you notice it because Chelsea don't win. And you can clearly see that he's not on the ball as often. He's marked out the game. There's Curtis Jones putting in the performance of his life. But in this case, you know, he doesn't have that physical side. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. But he doesn't even allow... And this is the thing about, like, the thought thing that Bergkamp's talking about. Like, that little flick that he does to get it round I can't remember which midfielder it was. It might have been Tonali. But it's like, if you know you don't have that physical attribute, you're not going to be able to, like, barge a player off the ball, then you know that you've got to get to the ball before the player can get to you. And if that means that you receive it in an unnatural position, then you've got to be able to have the touch, the nous in the brain to be able to be like, well, it goes there and then I go here. And he does that time and time again.
But also, I wanted to make this point, actually, is one of the things that, is worth discussing, which is that also that I think him and Maresca are just a match made in heaven. Maresca understands what this guy needs. And in this game, he switched him to the left half space as opposed to the right half space. And I think that was such a good decision because Neto was on that side. Because he's so fast, so good with the ball when he's dribbling, it creates more space for Palmer on that side of the pitch. So I think that, and also because he's a slightly more giving player in terms of his passes and whatnot, I just think it made so much sense to put Palmer on the left in this game as opposed to the right. It does mean that Madueke got a little bit less service, I think, but very smart. And then also, Reece James is on that side too, so he's the one who's inversing, which creates that stability and that deeper position, which lets Palmer kind of move around a bit more freely in that area too. So the whole thing just comes together, and it is about how do we create structures for our best players to thrive. Cole Palmer's our best player, so it's a no-brainer that you try and build the system so that he can do the best work he needs to do. And if you can stop him, then to a degree it stops us, but we have enough around him that we can kind of engineer ways around it. But yeah, 100% George. He's just brilliant, and I think he's going to be, by the time his career is said and done, I think he's going to have had an unbelievable career.
No, the numbers speak for themselves, and it leads us into the final part of the episode, which is, of course, the crazy, silly scenarios.
Yes.
And my scenario to you is about Cole Palmer. A bid comes in from Manchester City next summer of £230 million. Do you say yes or no?
No.
So you don't sell Palmer at any price?
No.
All right, fair enough.
Because you know why? I'm a football fan. I don't care how wealthy we are as long as we can pay the wages and keep signing new talent. So
there you go. That's the right answer.
Why would I want us to sell Palmer for even 500 million? We can't. Who can we buy that right now that's a better 10 than Palmer?
Well, that's why I asked you the question, because you
can't replace him, George.
Answer like that.
You can't replace him.
Irreplaceable. Spot on. Have you got one for me?
It's the January window. It's the January transfer window, and Chelsea have signed Wissa, Yoane Wissa. How much have we paid for him? And how do you feel about it as a fan?
Chelsea signed Yoane Wissa from Brentford. First of all, I'm ever so slightly confused that we've added yet another attacker into a mix of lots of attackers. I think the sad reality of the situation would be that we probably have to spend about 30 million to get him from Brentford. And I think more importantly, what it would mean is that Nicolas Jackson's probably got a long-term injury, which I hate the fact that we've ended this video by me saying that, but I do have a humongous wooden desk that I'm touching in like a very touch wood kind of way. I don't really know where I was going with that either. But yeah. I think overall, slightly underwhelming. Good Premier League player, but I think there'd have been too many negative things that would have had to happen for that to be a reality. So
I rate Wissa. I rate Wissa so highly. I brought him into FPL this week. He got me a goal and an assist. I think he's quality, and I'd be very happy. Ala Demba Ba, who else did we sign? Who was that striker that came from Marseille that we got? Loic Remy. Ala Demba Ba, Ala Loic Remy. He's another guy that's like good Premier League striker, comes into the mix and just provides that quality cover at striker.
You are one of those annoying people that just because you've got a player from like a lesser side in your FPL team, you think all the big clubs should sign him. You're that guy.
I don't think that's true, George. I think that I think Wissa's a very good player. I think you're underestimating Wissa. Would you be happy if we signed Bumo? Brian Mbumo?
No, not really. No. Good player, but no.
I don't know why. It's kind of turned here, hasn't it? The chat's kind of got a bit weird, hasn't it?
No, I like it. That's what this is all about. It's about adding some silly scenarios to the end of the podcast to just ease people out of the fact that they've been listening to absolutely world-class footballing conversation for so long, and then we can just throw a little dagger in at the end that says, actually, no, we're just like you. We're all stupid.
I've had a few people coming for me in the comments, actually. You sent me one. Someone said, I see Harry, I click next video. I was like, it's a bit harsh.
I think that's absolutely outrageous if you ask me, but at least if they like you, they can go over to your channel, they can subscribe, they can check out some boxing information. If you want to actually learn about boxing, I'd say Harry's channel is the place to go. But thank you guys for watching. It's been a fun episode. We've got a lot to look forward to.
So much to look forward to. And, if you guys want me replaced by Eunice, then hopefully him and George can mend their relationship and then we can all move forward.
I've had enough of this guy. We're going to sign out now. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.